Thank you, Dr. Chadda and friends. Governance for equity and sustainability. One of the most important things that we have to debate in our country today is about the water governance. Because as a resource which is held in public trust by all, water is not owned by anybody. It has been made very clear time and again. So ultimately, we all have to share the same common pool of resource that is becoming available year after year, and then how to manage it without really encroaching too much upon any other community or any other interest groups' rights or and our responsibilities. We have to really work on a consensual approach. If we do not use that consensual approach, we have been seeing many conflicts. We have been seeing many other problems that are coming up. So the equity and sustainability becomes a very important criteria. We have certain framework that is available to us, under which we have to manage this. But then the framework that is required to be done is something which has been also evolved in the same manner in which we have been thinking in this direction. Like right from the 1927 and in 1935, the water management has been defined in a way which is more and more decentralized. Like from a centralized concept, it was thought in 1935 itself that the water actually individual states have to look at the water resources, and then they have to manage it. And for that, now presently we have like policy set up in the way of national water policy, and then we are encouraging how to go about and formulate the state water policy, because each state has to think about the water that is available to them in the manner that is available to them, and then what are the means with which they can actually harness that for their setup. That we have to do in the constitutional provisions, where various central acts and also various state acts are there. And then the institutions have to really work on this, both policy and legal setup, so that the solutions that are found, that are possible to implement. The constitutional provisions, as we can see, are Article 246, where Parliament can make the laws under the union list and concurrent list and state list. And then entry 56, which says that the regulation and the development of interstate rivers. Now this is something which is actually very important, because conceptually we have been thinking that the water only belongs to the states. But then the intervention of entry 56, even though it has been used in a very limited sense by the government, but by virtue of this intervention, the overall water management for the country as a whole has to be thought about in a centralized manner. Because if we do not do it, then this common trust doctrine and then the adjustment between the various communities is something which cannot be really brought in without really having in place some kind of an adjudicator or some kind of a neutral party. And then as far as the distribution is concerned, the entry 17 says that the water supplies, irrigation, canals, drainage, these are all basically management issues. The management as in a more or less in a local or in a regional sense. That is where the states have to play their very important part. And that is why most of the assets from the water resources side remain owned by the state governments. There are actually, in case of the central provisions, we have not acted very strongly, but we have this Interstate Water Disputes Act, which provides for the interstate adjudication, even though of late, even that particular act is also coming under a lot of stress, as we have seen in case of the Kaveri dispute and other issues. Other acts that we wanted to have, we have not been able to really make it effective in the manner that we would have liked to do that. And then every state have acts to deal with the various needs. The important thing is the equity principles, because equity principle in a multifaceted society, we need to establish in the socio-economic context as well as intersectoral contexts. Merely quantitative issue cannot serve the purpose. Presently what is happening is, as far as the water allocation dialogues are concerned, we all get hung up on the quantities. And everybody tries to kind of fight about the individual quantities, so many TMCs or so many million acre feet or so many million cubic meter. And that is something where the equity principles are something important. The requirements vary with the climatic setup. The equity has to be exercised in the context of overall availability. We cannot simply make a demand, that we need so much and that will be made available to you somehow from somewhere. It may be true for coal, it may be true for petroleum, but it is not true for water. It can be made available only in a particular context. And then that is something where we have to form them as the basis. The allocation challenges that we have to really face in the view of this equity principle is that in a water scarcity scenario, the distribution of shortages is something that becomes very important. And while we do this distribution of shortages, how really we do it? What are the measures that we take, especially the efficiency improvement measures that we take? The management of the demand that we take in a proactive manner. These are the issues where we need to really think about in a very, very dynamic manner. We need a lot of growth in the forecasting technologies. We need a lot of growth in the distribution technologies so that we are in a position to really do this on an equity based principle. And the balancing of supply and demand is again a very dynamic context. We have to really see this, because if we have some kind of fixed cropping patterns as we have been having, like traditionally for generations a farmer or a set of farmers will only grow paddy and nothing else, is something that we will need to really bring in much more dynamism about, that this year is going to be of a particular kind, and then because it is going to be of a particular type of distribution, this is the best situation that you can really exploit. This kind of dynamism is something that we need to really bring in, and for that we need to do a lot of scientific development in the terms of forecasting, also in the terms of modeling, where we need to really work hard and then find out that what are going to be the impacts of a particular type of weather phenomena developing, and then how those impacts will be ameliorated. We need to really break the political boundaries. This is something that we need to really look at in the water governance area. And that is something where many times we find that we as even water professionals have also not explained the essential randomness and essential variability in the water availability to our politicians. So at times what is happening is that the politicians are not really able to respond to the kind of challenges that actually the water management places. And then increasingly hard stands keep on coming up, which becomes very difficult to really manage. Then we need to really also work on the sustainability through assurance of interventions. What kind of interventions we will do? We have various challenges, like you have seen here in the slide, that asking the communities to manage the water. There are limitations to it as there are benefits to it. When you ask communities to manage water, then each community will try to become an island in itself and will try to maximize its demand in a scenario where the supplies are going to be limited or sometimes they are going to be in a shortfall. So these are not something where some kind of an exclusive right can be given, which can happen in an European kind of phenomena where you have an assured availability year after year on a very stationary kind of a data series, and you are able to do that kind of water rights. That same kind of water rights administration doesn't really work because of this kind of inherent variabilities. So we need to really see that what kind of interventions we can do. We need to actually have the carryover storages. We need to know that how we save for the times of shortage and then release that in the shortages. So these are the issues that we need to really work on that. The governance strategies for sustainability is another thing where we need to have the owning up of various responsibilities by the community. When we are also owning up the resource management, we also own up on that front, that the O&M and the way we need to do. That is something that we have to think. Secondly, what I feel is that we have to have a strategic thought in the context of water availability. Currently, our thought is very much distributed. Our thought is actually either it is thinking too small or it is thinking quite large. And we do not have a kind of a merger between the two. We try to go into some kind of an exclusivist solutions, trying to kind of recommend panaceas. The panaceas are something which is really very difficult to really implement. You have no panacea in water management world. You have to employ every solution, however difficult it may look like. There are considered preconceived notions. Big dams are bad. There should not be any big dams. You should actually remove Tehri because it has done more damage to the country than it has given you the benefit. Because of the fact that we have not dispassionately and quantitatively analyzed the situation, what growth and what prosperity certain projects brought in, what miseries certain projects brought in, and then how can we really remove those miseries, and we bring in such a way that we are able to put up a kind of a water resources regime where everybody is in a position to provide for their own needs and for their own demands. We need to really do a lot of work on data collection. We need to do really a lot of work on the strategic. Thank you, sir. On these areas, and we would like to do the informed management. Currently, the informed management is not there, and that informed management we need to really bring. And with the informed management, you have to have the investment decisions, and then with the investment decisions, we need to have their continued investments. These are all long-term affairs. Water resources projects don't come overnight. Water resources solutions cannot be done by simply going ahead and releasing some money on day one. It takes 7 years, 8 years, 10 years, sometimes even generations. So this is something that we need to really work. We have got many problems like the IPC versus IPU. We have problems where we say that we think about panaceas like groundwater and making groundwater available to everybody. And in the process, we keep on working on these issues. So I feel that we need to really work on a very deep thought manner and a strategic manner in order to bring the water governance in the country. And once we bring the water governance, it will be that water governance which will see for us future. Thank you.